It was supposed to be a fun weekend getaway, a break from reality, just Ryan and me exploring the abandoned amusement park on the outskirts of town. But as we parked and stepped into the overgrown grounds, an unsettling chill crept down my spine. The sun was setting, casting long shadows that twisted like fingers reaching for us, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were walking into a trap. "Are you ready for some adventure?" Ryan joked, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. Something in the air felt off, as if the park itself was holding its breath, waiting for us to make a move. We pushed through the rusty gate, which creaked ominously as we entered. The sight of crumbling attractions brought a mix of nostalgia and dread. The carousel stood still, its once vibrant horses faded and chipped, while the Ferris wheel loomed like a skeletal giant against the darkening sky. "Let's check out the haunted house first," Ryan exclaimed, his enthusiasm infectious despite my growing apprehension. "Sure," I said, trying to sound enthusiastic, but I felt the weight of the silence surrounding us. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and decay, and the distant rustle of leaves felt like whispers warning us to turn back. As we approached the haunted house, a flicker of movement caught my eye near the entrance. I squinted into the shadows, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. "Did you see that?" I asked, my heart racing. "See what?" Ryan replied, his brow furrowed in confusion. "Nothing," I said, shaking off the unease. "Let's just go inside." We stepped into the haunted house, the door creaking ominously behind us. Inside, the darkness enveloped us like a thick fog. The air was stale, and the walls were lined with peeling paint and cobwebs. Flickering lights from old dusty props cast eerie shadows that danced around us. "Creepy, right?" Ryan said, taking out his phone to capture the moment. "Yeah, definitely," I replied, but I felt a knot forming in my stomach. Every corner seemed to hide something sinister. As we explored the dilapidated rooms, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The silence pressed in on me, broken only by the distant sound of dripping water. I turned to Ryan, but he was focused on filming the dimly lit hallway. "Ryan, can we go?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "Just a few more minutes," he insisted, excitement shining in his eyes. I sighed and wandered away, glancing into a room filled with old, dusty mirrors. As I peered into one, I thought I saw a flicker of movement behind me. My heart raced as I spun around, but again nothing was there, just shadows stretching in the dim light. Finally, Ryan's laughter echoed from another room. I followed the sound, relieved to see him standing in front of an old fortune-telling booth. "Check this out," he called, excitement in his voice. "Let's see what the future holds." I stepped closer, trying to shake off my unease. Ryan inserted a coin and the machine whirred to life. A card slid out and Ryan picked it up, laughing. "It says, 'Beware the darkness that watches from the shadows.'" He chuckled, but I felt a chill wash over me. "Very funny," I replied, trying to sound lighthearted, but the warning echoed in my mind. As we continued to explore, the atmosphere shifted, the air grew colder, and the shadows deepened. "Let's check out the Ferris wheel," Ryan suggested, and despite my instincts telling me to leave, I nodded. We walked outside, and as we approached the towering structure, I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The wind howled, sending a chill through me. "Maybe we should just go back," I said, glancing over my shoulder. "Come on, it'll be fun," Ryan urged, already climbing the rickety steps to the first gondola. Reluctantly, I followed, my heart pounding. As we reached the top, I felt a rush of anxiety wash over me. The view of the park was hauntingly beautiful, but the shadows below seemed to move, as if alive. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the park and the ground trembled beneath us. "What was that?" I gasped, clutching the railing. "Probably just the wind," Ryan said, though I could see the uncertainty in his eyes. But just as I was about to speak, a figure emerged from the darkness at the base of the Ferris wheel. A girl, her pale face illuminated by the fading light. She stood still, her dark hair falling over her shoulders, eyes fixed on us with an unsettling intensity. "Ryan, look," I pointed, but when he turned, she was gone. "See who?" he asked, confusion etched on his face. Just never mind, I replied, shaking off the feeling. As night fell, the atmosphere thickened with tension. The park transformed, shadows stretched and twisted, and a chilling wind began to blow. Ryan suggested we head back to the car, but I felt a magnetic pull toward the girl I had seen. "Let's go check out the old games," I said, trying to mask my anxiety. We wandered through the remnants of carnival games, the skeletal structures jutting out like grave markers. As I picked up a rusted ring toss, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. The girl was back, standing just beyond the reach of the lights, her expression hauntingly sad. "Ryan, there she is again," I whispered, panic rising in my chest. But when Ryan turned, she vanished once more. "Stop messing with me," he said, his voice growing frustrated. "It's just the dark playing tricks." "No, I swear, she's real," I insisted, my heart racing. Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting a message from my mom, but instead an unknown number flashed on the screen. "Get out now." "Who's that?" Ryan asked, peering over my shoulder. "I don't know. It's weird," I replied, my unease deepening. Before I could respond, the phone buzzed again. "She's coming for you." A wave of fear washed over me and I felt my heart drop. "Let's get out of here," I urged, grabbing Ryan's arm. He nodded, but as we turned to leave, the air around us grew heavy. The lights flickered, and the girl appeared again, standing closer now, her eyes dark and hollow. "You shouldn't have come back," she whispered, her voice echoing in my mind. "Run!" I screamed, and we dashed toward the exit. The shadows seemed to reach for us, fingers of darkness clawing at our backs. We reached the gate, adrenaline coursing through my veins, but as we burst into the parking lot, I glanced back. The girl stood at the entrance, her face a mask of sorrow, and I felt a pang of regret. "Drive, drive," I urged, and Ryan jumped into the car, fumbling for the keys. As he started the engine, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The girl was still there, watching us with an intensity that sent chills down my spine. We sped away, but my heart was still racing. "What was that?" I asked, shaking. "I don't know, but let's forget about it," Ryan said, trying to sound brave, but I could hear the tremor in his voice. That night I received more texts from the unknown number. "You shouldn't have gone there. She was waiting for you." I couldn't sleep, each text gnawing at my sanity. Days turned into weeks, and I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. Shadows followed me everywhere, whispering secrets I couldn't understand. One night I decided to confide in Ryan, hoping to find solace in his presence. I called him, but he didn't answer. My heart sank as I sent a message, but there was no response. Hours passed, and just as I began to worry, my phone buzzed. It was Ryan. "I'm sorry, I can't talk right now." "What do you mean?" I replied, panic rising. "I need to go back to the park." "Are you crazy? You can't go back there," I pleaded, but he didn't reply. My heart raced, a sense of dread enveloping me. In a panic, I drove back to the amusement park, the familiar path now twisted and foreboding. As I pulled into the lot, I felt the darkness closing in. The gate stood slightly ajar, creaking as if beckoning me inside. "Ryan!" I called, my voice echoing into the void. I stepped into the park, a chilling breeze wrapping around me. "Where are you?" I shouted, my heart pounding in my chest. I moved deeper into the park, each step heavy with dread. The haunted house loomed ahead, its broken windows like hollow eyes. I felt compelled to enter, fear urging me forward. Inside, the air was thick with dust and shadows. "Ryan!" I called again, desperation clawing at my throat. In the far corner, I saw a flicker of movement. I rushed toward it, heart racing. But as I turned the corner, I was met with a sight that froze my blood. Ryan stood there, staring blankly at the wall, the same haunted expression I had seen in the girl's eyes. "Ryan!" I shouted, shaking him. He didn't respond. "What's wrong with you?" Suddenly the lights flickered, and a low, sinister laughter echoed around us. I turned to see the girl standing in the doorway, her eyes dark and filled with malevolence. "You shouldn't have come back," she said, her voice a haunting melody. "Leave us alone," I screamed, But her laughter grew louder, filling the room with an oppressive darkness. The shadows closed in around us, twisting and writhing like living things. I grabbed Ryan's hand, trying to pull him away, but he remained rooted to the spot, as if entranced. "Ryan, please," I begged, tears streaming down my face. But it was as if he couldn't hear me. The girl stepped closer, her face a mask of sorrow and anger. "He belongs to me now," she whispered, and I felt a wave of despair wash over me. In a final surge of adrenaline, I pulled Ryan toward the exit, the shadows clawing at our heels. We stumbled out into the open air, gasping for breath. But the darkness followed, pressing against us, whispering secrets that chilled me to the bone. As we reached the car, I turned to Ryan, but he stood still, staring into the night. "No, come on," I shouted, desperation rising in my chest. He blinked, as if waking from a dream, and jumped into the car. I started the engine, my hands shaking as I glanced back at the park. The girl stood at the entrance watching us leave, a sorrowful expression etched on her face. "Drive!" I shouted, and Ryan hit the gas. The tires screeched as we tore down the road, leaving the darkness behind. But as we drove, I glanced at Ryan, and my heart sank. His expression was vacant, as if something had changed within him. "Ryan?" I asked, fear creeping into my voice. He turned to me, his eyes dark and empty. "We have to go back," he said, his voice flat. "What? No, we can't!" I cried, panic rising. But before I could protest, my phone buzzed again. An unknown number flashed on the screen. "You can't escape her." Terror gripped me as I realized the truth. Whatever force had been unleashed at the park had followed us home. The darkness was inside Ryan now, and I had to find a way to save him. "Stay with me, please," I begged, gripping his arm, but he seemed lost in a trance. As we drove, the landscape outside morphed into a blur, the shadows lengthening. I felt the weight of unseen eyes upon us, and the air grew colder, suffocating. "Ryan, please, you have to fight it," I shouted, but his gaze remained fixed ahead, unblinking. Suddenly, the car headlights illuminated the girl standing by the roadside, her face twisted in anguish. "Help me," she screamed, her voice a haunting echo that reverberated through my mind. "Don't look at her," I screamed, but Ryan's expression shifted, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. "Stop!" he shouted, but the car swerved, veering toward her. "No!" I yelled, but it was too late. The girl vanished, and we crashed into the trees. Everything went dark. When I woke, the car was upside down, the world spinning around me. I scrambled to unbuckle my seatbelt, heart racing. "Ryan!" I called, panic clawing at my throat. I crawled out of the wreckage, the cold night air biting at my skin. As I stumbled into the clearing, I saw him lying on the ground, unconscious. Relief flooded through me as I rushed to his side. "Ryan, please wake up!" I shook him, fear overwhelming me. Slowly, his eyes fluttered open, but they were different, hollow, void of the warmth I knew. "She's here," he whispered, voice trembling. Before I could react, the shadows coalesced around us, swirling like a storm. The girl emerged from the darkness, her face twisted in rage and sorrow. "You brought him back!" she screamed, her voice echoing like a death knell. "Get away from him!" I shouted, stepping between them. But the shadows surged, and I felt a cold grip on my heart. "He's mine now," the girl hissed, her form flickering between reality and nightmare. I fought against the darkness, clawing my way back to Ryan. "You have to fight her," I begged, desperation lacing my voice. He stared at me, confusion washing over his face. "What's happening?" "The girl! She wants to take you!" I cried, my heart racing. "No, you can't take him!" I shouted at the girl, defiance surging within me. The shadows recoiled, and for a moment I thought I could see the girl's true self. A frightened child lost in the darkness. "Help me," she pleaded, but her voice was laced with malice. In that instant, I realized the truth. She wasn't just a vengeful spirit. She was trapped, a lost soul seeking to drag others into her nightmare. "I won't let you have him," I screamed, determination igniting within me. With everything I had, I reached for Ryan's hand. "Fight it, come back to me." The darkness howled, thrashing around us, but I felt Ryan's grip tighten on my hand. "I'm here," he shouted, and for a brief moment the shadows receded. "Run!" I screamed, and together we fled into the woods, the girls' anguished cries echoing behind us. The shadows clawed at our backs, but we pushed forward, fueled by adrenaline and desperation. We stumbled through the underbrush, the darkness closing in, but finally, we broke free into the moonlit clearing. I could see the distant glow of the road, hope igniting in my chest. "Keep going," I urged, dragging Ryan along. We ran toward the light, the darkness screaming in our wake. Just as we reached the edge of the trees, I felt a sharp pain grip my heart. The girl's presence was stronger than ever, and I knew we had to make a choice. I turned to Ryan. "We have to confront her. It's the only way." "Are you crazy?" he gasped, breathless. "She needs help. We can't leave her like this," I said, determination surging within me. With a nod, we turned back to face the darkness, hand in hand. The girl stood before us, a twisted visage of pain and longing. "You shouldn't have come back," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, my voice steady despite the fear clawing at my throat. "I'm trapped here," she cried, her voice echoing with sorrow. "I want to be free, but I need a soul to replace mine." "You don't have to take anyone," I pleaded. "We can help you." The darkness around her pulsed, and I could feel the tension in the air. "Please," I whispered, "let us help you find peace." In that moment, something shifted. The shadows flickered, and the girl's face softened, a glimpse of the child she once was shining through. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Tell us what to do," I urged, desperation gripping my heart. "I need to be released," she said, and with a wave of sorrow, the darkness began to recede. "But someone must stay." "No, I won't let you take him," I shouted, the realization hitting me hard. "I can't help it," she cried, anguish etched on her face. "But if you truly want to help, you must find a way to forgive me." Ryan and I exchanged a look, and in that moment I understood. This was not just about her. It was about healing the pain that had trapped her in this torment. "Forgive yourself," I said softly, stepping closer. "You don't have to be alone anymore." As the words left my lips, the shadows shrieked, swirling violently around us. But I stood firm, my heart pounding with a newfound resolve. "You can let go. You deserve peace." The girl's expression shifted, a mixture of pain and longing in her eyes. "Can you really forgive me?" "Yes," I said, my voice steady. "We forgive you." With a final cry, the darkness erupted, the shadows swirling violently before collapsing in on themselves. The girl's form flickered, her face a mixture of relief and sorrow. "Thank you," she whispered, and in a flash, she was gone. In the aftermath, the air grew still. Ryan and I stood in the clearing, breathless and shaken, but the weight of dread had lifted. The oppressive darkness that had haunted us was gone, replaced by a quiet calm. Did we do it?" Ryan asked, disbelief written across his face. "I think so," I replied, a sense of peace washing over me. But as we turned to leave, I felt a soft touch on my shoulder. I spun around, heart racing, but there was nothing there, just the moonlight filtering through the trees. "Let's go home," I said, taking Ryan's hand. As we walked away from the park, I felt a lingering sense of unease, but also a glimmer of hope. The darkness may have retreated, but I knew it could always return. The memory of that night would haunt us, a reminder of the shadows that lurked behind every smile,